made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Transact Card, Align Life, Neuro Infinity, Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 528 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we have the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Phil Dieter. And if you want to hear a story about how focusing on everything that chiropractic is, not everything that chiropractic isn't, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Today I have Phil Dieter on with me out of California. I've gotten to know this guy pretty well over the past couple months and looking to see what we can do to continuously support this beautiful profession of chiropractic. This episode, we're going to talk politics, animal chiropractic, and a lot of deep dive on issues that should matter to all of you. And it's a chiropractic conversation that we're going to have today. Dr. Phil is episode 528 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. And before we get into this powerful episode, I'm going to let everybody know our big why. Why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle? Well, first things first is freedom of speech. I believe that that's so important to us as a nation, but as a world. If we lose that, then we lose everything. And after that, medical freedom and family health freedom, those things are like near and dear to my heart because I think that everybody should have a choice as to how they raise their families. And if they're a family of one, how they raise themselves. And then as we go down the line, there are some more philosophical depths of why we do what we do, and that is protecting the sacred trust. That's BJ Palmer's last words. If you don't know what that means, I just ask you to go to your favorite search engine, stop this episode right now, and just go and find out what BJ Palmer's last words were, find out what BJ Palmer's sacred trust was, and you're going to learn so much more about chiropractic than you ever knew before. Even if you're a chiropractor, go do it. After that, we do support subluxation-based chiropractic. We believe in innate intelligence and universal intelligence. Yes, over here at Chiro Hustle, we still believe in man and women. And we believe that when man or woman, the physical is adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. And with that being said,
Amen.
Dr. Phil, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I love the idea of the sacred trust that you talk about. And it's something I hold near and dear to my heart because I feel like I have been given this opportunity to live this life that I have because I've been exposed to chiropractors that have done just that, in terms of guarding that sacred trust. And I want to do right by them. I mean, quite honestly, that's why I do everything I do because I'm so grateful to them.
Yeah. Every time I met you, you've always seemed like somebody that wanted to be a team player and you wanted to see your team win. And you would do anything
Absolutely.
that it took, early mornings, late nights, weekend trips, whatever it would take to protect the sacred trust. And I think that that really resonated with me. And you could see me from the outside looking in. Well, wow, that guy's doing all this stuff to support this chiropractic profession. I want to join forces with him. I want to help him. And I just thank you for supporting us too, man.
Oh, absolutely. I got a great compliment when I was a young kid about doing the work in the trenches or being a guy who would do the work in the trenches. And it's still something that resonates with me. And I'm grateful for, and I'm proud of myself about, being willing to do the work in the trenches.
So let's talk about that. I love the stories that I get on the show from chiropractors and how they got into becoming a chiropractor. So I know you're a second generation chiropractor because we had a brief chat before this interview, but tell me how you got into chiropractic and that story.
Well, like I said, I didn't really go into chiropractic right away after I graduated from school. I thought I was going to be a lawyer, to be honest with you. But, I've been around chiropractic my whole life. I really don't know a life outside of being in chiropractic, to be honest with you. I've had the opportunity to, sit in a room with Dr. Sid and Dr. Nell. And I got this vivid memory of being like in this hotel suite, sitting on Dr. Nell's knee. And she's like, call me your boyfriend, and I was only like 3 or 4 years old. And I was like, I'd hold their hand down the seminar floor at like DE meetings and things of that nature. And so I feel like, to some extent prepared me to get into chiropractic. And, sometimes I have regret about not having gone into chiropractic right when I was 20 or 21 years old. But then I step back and I think to myself, maybe I wouldn't have appreciated it as much. I've seen people who got into chiropractic, or chiropractic kids like myself who got into chiropractic when they were real young, right out of college, and they're not practicing at this point. And so I don't see myself not practicing in the future. And so maybe that was just a path that I had to go through. But I got to the point where I was, 25, 26 years old, and I had a career. I was making a living, and I kind of stepped back and asked myself, is this really what I wanted to do? And the answer was no. And I had started to think about, like, what is it that I really wanted to do? And I'd always thought about being a chiropractor. I've worked in I was working in my dad's practice, answering phones and stuff like that, making appointments when I was 12 and 13 years old. And so I just said, if I was ever going to go to chiropractic school, I better do it. I'm getting to the point where I'm 26. I thought I was getting old at that point. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I had a great conversation with Jerry Klum, who I'm always grateful for, in terms of propelling me forward in this regard. I can remember that conversation in his office like it was yesterday. I'd been out on a sales call. I was selling semiconductor equipment. This is right around the turn of the century. Everybody was making money in the semiconductor business at that point. Seemed like you couldn't miss, but it just really wasn't fulfilling me, my mission, my purpose, what I considered, my destiny, so to speak. Went on a sales call right next to the college, which my dad had been, the chairman of the board for 30 years. So I was real familiar with the college, had known Jerry for a long time, sat down with him just because I wanted to see what was happening with the college. And he was always so gracious with his time. He still is gracious with his time. And he welcomed me into his office. I didn't have an appointment, anything like that, sat me down. And, I just started telling him about how I was looking for something different in my life. And he said, well, you could always come here and be a recruiter at the college. And I said, oh, well, that kind of intrigued me, maybe you could build upon my sales background. And I said, okay, well, what's the salary like for being a recruiter at the college? And I won't tell you what the salary was, but it wasn't quite what I was making in the semiconductor business. And so I said, well, okay, what if I take tuition in lieu of compensation? That's what I asked him. And he's like, well, if you think you want to go to chiropractic school, you better figure out if, this is something you're really committed to, because I don't believe you're going to be able to do both things at once, And I said, oh, okay, well, I took a step back and I started thinking about it. And I was like, I do really want to go to chiropractic college. And I figured, well, he won't give me the job now, but maybe I could prove him wrong, and I could actually do the recruiting job, and I could go to school simultaneously. So that's really what I set out to do. And in the end, he was right that I couldn't really do both. And I got another story about how I sort of like just hit the gas in physiology class one day and decided to ultimately just put all my time, effort, and energy into learning about the human body, learning about innate intelligence, and just embracing innate intelligence, I guess, more so than anything. But that's how we got here.
Love it. Love it. And, the second part of that question I like to ask is what makes you unique in this space. And I think that we're going to take a deep dive on politics,
Sure.
Chiropractic politics, at that matter. So the mic's yours.
Well, like you said, I feel so indebted to the people that have got me to this point, and I want to do right by them. That's the kind of guy that I am. And so I think that's how I've gotten into some of these chiropractic politic things is because ultimately I do have that sense of indebtedness to them. The ability to have this mindset, this chiropractic mindset, is so unique. Ian Rassel once told me, that I was the unicorn in the room because I've never lived that life without chiropractic, and so in that sense, I have this deep sense of gratitude for having this mindset, having exposure to these concepts of innate intelligence, of how the human body works, and just all of the things that chiropractic embraces. And so I think that's really what's gotten me into this chiropractic politics thing. And I sat in a classroom in Jim Seaver's class. I was like ethics or chiropractic philosophy 3 or something like that. And he had us do this exercise, kind of like a mission, vision, that kind of exercise that we went into. And I wrote down in that class, this is almost 17 years ago now, that, I'm really dedicated to elevating the chiropractic profession to its rightful position of prominence. And that's something that I've let lead me and lead my life even to this day in practice. And so getting into the chiropractic politics space seemed like a natural progression of that, because I'm all about creating chiropractic respect, or I think it even goes back to my time, like as a little kid on the playground, and people trying to tell me that my dad wasn't a real doctor, or that somehow people think we're inferiorly educated as chiropractors. And I'm just not going to accept that. I'm not going to accept that for myself. I'm not going to accept that for my colleagues. And so certainly that's not something, that's what gets me fired up, or that's what really gets me pissed off. And, when I'm looking at somebody and they try to tell me what chiropractic is good for, I'm like, you're not going to tell me what chiropractic is good for. I'll tell you what chiropractic is good for. And I think that's the important thing, is either we're going to dictate the narrative of chiropractic, or it's going to get dictated to us. And so I'm not about to stand by and let that happen. And I'm looking for other people who won't stand by and let that happen. I think that's why, I've gravitated towards you, and we've resonated, and our relationship has continued to build, is because I don't get that sense from you either, that you're going to sit back and let somebody else tell you what you're good for, kind of thing. Even those little kids on the playground, that I used to get in dust ups with, or whatever you want to call them back in those days.
Well, I think, based on what you're sharing there, that even if people don't support it, they have to.
At least with some level of involvement. I know not everybody wants to be me. I like the chiropractic politics space. I like going to these events and building relationships with politicians, and I'm good at it, quite frankly. And so I understand not everybody wants to be involved in politics in that manner, but there's got to be people that support those initiatives. There's got to be people who sign up as members, who donate to political action committees, who get, just involved in committees and putting on events and doing things like you do, and the things that you promote, because otherwise there's no means for me to do that. I need that kind of firepower, so that when I go into that room, I can tell them, hey, look, we're going to either raise you money, or we're going to get you votes, or we're going to do whatever it takes to help promote, what's important to you, because I know you also support what's important to me. And that's how it works. Even in practice, that's when you're working with a patient, and you have that moment in a consultation or an interview, or whatever you want to call it, where you just try to identify what's important for them. And as soon as you can identify what's important for a patient, and you can connect what you do as a chiropractor and through chiropractic, and how that will help them ultimately achieve what's important for them, now we have a mutually beneficial relationship. Now there's value for both people, right? And so it's the same thing that goes into that chiropractic politics space. And that's really what I'm trying to achieve when I go into those worlds.
So you mentioned to me during our pre-interview chat about this AB 765. Talk about that a little bit, and then let's get to the point where we're discussing Medi-Cal and animal chiropractic.
Absolutely. The AB 765 was something that just recently came up. And, we don't always get a lot of wins in chiropractic politics. Everybody's looking for legislation to pass, or like some big windfall type of thing. But I think it's important to remember these small little things that we're trying to defend against, or these ways in which just there's trying to be inch by inch, just progress against this kind of thing. And so the American Medical Association basically put out some documents that said every state should try to create legislation that basically limits the use of the term doctor regarding specialties, and just the use of the term even more so than it's restricted now, and that type of thing. And so in California, they tried to pass AB 765, and through a coalition of groups, we were able to lobby against that. And that bill has actually been defeated at this point. And so it's hard to say if it will come back, but that's the kind of thing to me that smells eerily of like the contain and eliminate 1981 Wilkes concepts that were being put out regarding antitrust things, 30 years ago, or even 40 years ago now. And so I think if we don't pay attention to those kind of things, they're going to continue to be put out there, and there's going to be people that try to just move forward. It's always a game of chess, or just gaining ground, right? And that's what politics is if I can gain a little ground here, then my opponent loses a little ground here. And so that's where it's important to understand that there's things going on behind the scenes that if you're not paying attention to, they're going to creep up on you. There's already places where people have lost the rights to do x-ray or see kids. And I know you've been involved in some of those things. And so, just sitting back and waiting for somebody else to do it, to me, just seems like I just question, why don't people feel like having a political presence is necessary? Or do people feel like it's important to have a political presence? I know you do, and I know I do, certainly. And so that's something where I feel like if we don't have that political presence, we're going to lose ground.
Well, one of my all-time favorite quotes is by a guy named Bob Marley. Most people are familiar with Bob Marley, One Love. And he had a quote that I absolutely fell in love with, which was, why would I take a day off because the bad guys don't?
That's right.
And that's the thing about politics and chiropractic. Why would we take a day off because the bad guys don't? The people that are writing these other things, trying to pass them through legislation, they're not taking days off. They're actually doubling down. They're tripling down. They're hiring more. They're deploying
Exactly.
more efforts. So if chiropractors don't hold their line, and like you said, the game of chess, I actually look at chiropractic as the last piece on the chessboard before medical tyranny takes over the world. Like, chiropractors are the only people saying that we don't need more drugs, we don't need more surgery, we need the body to be able to heal itself, we need to remove the interference. It doesn't need another pill, potion, or lotion. We don't need to cut it out, drug it out, burn it out. We need to correct the vertebral subluxation, let the body's innate heal, and let the body be the self-healing organism that it is. Let's not put nothing else into it. Let's just remove the interference. And if it wasn't for that standardization of philosophy and that holding the line within the ethics of chiropractic, then we would be in a full blown, you have to do this way, and there's no one else holding that position anywhere.
Absolutely. And I've been in scenarios with high level legislators, and they ask me, "What's with you chiropractors?" And I've been able to give a coherent response that was educated and well thought out, and it put the whole room in silence. I was in a Giants game, in a luxury box at a Giants game when this came up, and I got put so on the spot, and it took me off guard, but I took a moment and I gathered myself, and I just said, "Look, here's what we're about from a chiropractic perspective." And I just went back to the philosophy, almost like you're talking about, because that was that was the place that I was grounded in. And that gave me the strength to answer the question to some extent. And I will never forget that moment, because I answered the question well. And there was another chiropractor with me in that scenario. And he goes, "Man, you handled that good." And I was like, "Well, I hope so." I was on the spot, but I just did the best I could, kind of thing.
Well, when chiropractic has deep roots of philosophy, it doesn't matter what storm comes at it, it will not blow over. And that's why you were able to stand as strong as you did in that conviction, because when you have deep roots, it doesn't matter if it's a level 5 hurricane, the tree doesn't get uprooted.
That's right.
And chiropractors or organic matter, and if you guys have deep rooted philosophy, it doesn't matter what the medical mafia does or what the big box medical stores do. Like, it doesn't matter. Chiropractic's conviction is so deep with the philosophy, you cannot blow it over, you can't knock it over. It will be timeless. Chiropractic philosophy is timeless.
And I think that's ultimately what motivates me to do what I do, is because I don't need breaks when I'm on fire like that. I don't look at this as something that I just, BJ always said, early to bed, early to rise. And I think about the stories where he was, going to see patients, and then he'd go teach a class, and then he'd go promote chiropractic on his radio show and that kind of thing. And I'm like, well, if he could do that, why can't we do that? That's what it took to get us here. That's the level of commitment and enthusiasm and just fight to get to this point. And so, unfortunately, we've lost a little bit of that at this point. But I'm not going to lose it. And I'm looking for other people who don't want to lose it and want to double down like that, because that's how I do things.
I love it. I love it. So let's topically switch over to the next thing, and that's Medi-Cal. I know that's something you wanted to touch on. And like you said, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to accept Medi-Cal as a practitioner, but we have to have the position to be able to say yes or no to it, right?
Absolutely, because in the political space, that's the important thing, right? I know there's not going to be a lot of chiropractors that want to take Medi-Cal. I know they're concerned about the reimbursement, all of the other things, but for me, it's a matter of respect. If we don't establish chiropractors as category of providers in these spaces, they're going to continue to think that we're inferiorly educated and that we don't know what we're talking about and we don't deserve a seat at the table, kind of thing. And that's one of the things that frustrates me so much. You have to walk that line, and you were talking about the line in our pre-interview type of thing consult, but you have to walk that line between understanding the innate potential of the body, understanding the concept of the subluxation, the philosophy of chiropractic, like you were talking about, and then working within those worlds. And maybe that's where I'm unique, is because I've been exposed to those things, from a young age. And so those are just part of me. Those aren't things that I need to look for inside of myself, I guess, at this point. I mean, I'm always trying to be humble. I'm always trying to work on self-discovery. But with regards to Medi-Cal, chiropractic hasn't been in the Medi-Cal space now since 2008, roughly. And at this point, it's high time. We've been able to secure sponsorship from the Speaker of the House, the Speaker of the the Speaker of the Assembly, and the Speaker of the Senate. We made it all the way to the governor's desk last year, but he removed it from the budget because he didn't want to assign any recurring benefits into play. And so that's frustrating from a political perspective, but it also reminded me, don't quit. And so we doubled down on it again, and we're going back at it. And this time, we've got, I want to continue to rally people, even that are part of this podcast. If you can just do the minimum of writing a letter to the governor, telling them that you think chiropractors should be part of, the Medi-Cal environment, that would be the minimum, most helpful thing you could do. Maybe you can't be a member at this point. Maybe you can't afford to be a PAC contributor. I understand that everybody's at a different place in their practice. And, I always think about, what can you do? What can you offer? And that would be almost the minimum thing that you could do. So if that's something that somebody's willing to do, just reach out to me, message me on Facebook. I'll get you set up. I won't, we don't have to pressure you for anything else and that kind of thing.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Transact Card, Align Life, Neuro Infinity, Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. Let's hustle.
So that's an important initiative for us right now at Cal Chiro. I know we can get this done. We just got to push this across the line. And it's that level of commitment and stick-to-itiveness that thankfully I've had for a long time that I'm just going to keep cultivating in this regard.
Let's talk numbers. Like, how many people would realistically make an impact if we had people writing these letters?
Well, let's roughly say we've had on the rolls 13,000 chiropractors over the last few years in California. I would say we're down closer to like 11,500. But if we could get just a third of that, right now we only have about 13 to 1,500 people in the state association. That's minuscule compared to what we're dealing with on the medical association level. When it comes to PAC dollars, it's even worse, type of thing. And so it's hard to promote the profession. It's hard to defend the profession when you have that level of interest, basically. But if we could get a third, if we could get 3,000 people, basically, 3,000 to 4,000 people, basically writing letters, just showing their concern. And it doesn't even have to always be chiropractors. It could be individuals, right? How many people have gone on to Medi-Cal recently? Think about that. People who've lost their insurance for some reason, different people for different reasons and things of that nature. And so even getting patients or individuals to write Medi-Cal letters would be helpful. I have sat in the classroom and I've listened to students tell me how much they want to take care of people who otherwise can't take care of themselves. That's something that I'm grateful at the college at Life West that we continue to give, love, and serve, out of our abundance from. So I know that there's people that want to be able to care for those individuals, maybe not in their own private practice. Maybe there's going to be some ways that they could serve in a federally qualified health center or something along those lines that could take them on and become a Medi-Cal practitioner. They could get loan forgiveness. They could get a base salary. They could work in an environment that allows them to build up their business skills and ultimately become a better practitioner and a better adjuster and all of the things that are involved with that.
Yeah, I think, having resources and people willing to step up and say, yes, I'll do that. That's a huge step in a forward momentum position. And I think that if everybody just said, yeah, I'll take 5 minutes to talk into my phone and say, this is the reason that we need to support chiropractic in the state of California, and just say that and edit it and then email it in or write it out by hand, whatever it takes. Get it out there.
It's easier than that. If you message me, I can get you on the list and it's a point and click. All you got to do is put your name and address in. It'll tell you who your legislators are. You can push the button. It'll send the letters out automatically, because let's be honest, these legislators aren't sitting down and like reading every letter from every constituent. It's a matter of volume. It's a matter of saying, okay, I've got this many letters, I got this many emails on this topic. I better pay attention to this because there's a lot of constituents that are concerned about this. Now, who would I talk to that knows something about this? Oh, there's that Dr. Phil guy out there who keeps coming around to these events, and he keeps coming up to the Capitol, and he keeps trying to talk to us about chiropractors and how educated they are. Maybe I should reach out to Dr. Phil. Oh, okay. Dr. Phil, can I talk to you about what's going on here with this Medi-Cal thing a little bit deeper? I've had a lot of constituents raising this issue to me. That's how it works. It's that simple. It's a numbers game. It's all about the volume.
Yeah. And that was like one of our big talking points a week ago when we connected was how can we get more people to join the state association and become members of the Cal Chiro State Association? And there's a couple ways, just from my standpoint, is people can support the organization with their time, their talent, or their treasure. Those are a couple like easy things for me to remember on always to make note of. But it's not just like a fun thing for me to say. I do think that people should join. And if they can't participate, then they should fund. And if they can't fund, then they should participate. And I think that those are the best ways to support anything in chiropractic is if you don't want to give your money, give your time. And if you don't want to give your time, give your money.
And it's also a matter of the association needs to provide value. So we need you to tell us, how can we help you? What can we do to provide you more support in the field or whatever it is? It can't be just a one-way street. It has to be a two-way street. These are the things that are important to me, but those aren't necessarily the things that are always important to everybody in private practice, even like new practitioners. How can we give new practitioners support? Those kind of things are important as well. And so looking to create that two-way relationship.
And I know one of the things that you've been working with recently is the animal chiropractic in California. Tell us a little bit about what's going on that topic.
Yeah, I mean, if you aren't into the animal chiropractic world, I have horses back in Tennessee. I love riding. I've been riding since I was a little kid. I get my horses adjusted. They're performance horses, and in the performance horse world or in the thoroughbred racing world, getting animals adjusted to optimize performance, that's a big time thing that's going on. And so here in California, there's a lot of that goes on down south and even up in the north here a little bit as well. But there's literally animal chiropractors that are getting cease and desist letters because we have not established a regulation under the Board of Chiropractic Examiners, and we don't have legislation to particularly regulate animal chiropractic. And so there's this gray area that's been going on for quite some time now. And again, this is one of, I love chiropractic history. I love how you talk about the chiropractic philosophy. That's something Dr. Sean Dill used to always teach us when we were in school is there is the chiropractic philosophy. But this animal chiropractic thing to me, this reminds me of like 1920s type of chiropractic and what was going on when people were getting jailed for chiropractic. Now, a cease and desist letter is a lot different than going to jail, but jail's a lot different now than it was, 100 years ago too. And so I think that this is something also that goes back to creating a level of respect and creating just a category of provider, a specialty in which animal chiropractors can be able to function and operate without the fear of getting cease and desist letters. Because quite honestly, it's the same thing that's going on in the physical therapy world where people are trying to do manipulation or adjustments or whatever they want to call it, where they've gone to a weekend seminar and tried to learn some sort of process or technique or adjustment and then applying it to their physical therapy practice. Well, that's what's happening in the veterinary medicine world. All of a sudden now that there's people making money on it, there's people that are paying attention to like, hey, this is what the population wants. This is what the consumer wants. Now they want to be the ones who provide it. And they want to take the chiropractors who have put all of their time and energy into learning what chiropractic is, how the human body works, and then taking another step in terms of learning about the individual animals, what the anatomy entails there, what the physiology entails there, and then applying the chiropractic principles to the care of animals, and they want to take that from them. And so to me, that just doesn't seem right. So we need to make some progress in that regard. So if there are animal chiropractors that are listening to the show, that's somebody, that's something that I'm really trying to rally behind. We're going to have to either pass legislation or file a lawsuit or do something along those lines to really help defend animal chiropractors in the state of California. But there's other states that have done it. And so it's not unprecedented. It's just going to be a matter of effort and enthusiasm and people getting concerned or finding people that are concerned to act on their own behalf. And it's the same with the chiropractic profession, unfortunately, is that we got to get people that are willing to act on their own behalf in all regards, in terms of finding patients, and finding people to serve and serving them, and I know that's what you do so well.
Well, as with this conversation kind of wraps up today, one of my favorite bands of all time is called Rage Against the Machine. And they had a line in one of their songs. It said, "If we don't take action now, we'll settle for nothing later."
There you go.
And I think that hits right to the heart of our conversation today. If people don't take action now and become involved and support the people supporting them on a political level and join their state associations, even if it's not for them, your $50 a month, it matters. Your $100 a month, it matters. Your name on the list, it matters. And one day they might send you a letter of cease and desist as being a chiropractor. Mm-hmm. And we don't ever want to see a dark age like that come into this world that we both support, and we perpetuate this greatness within the profession of having freedom to practice with the license of chiropractic in all 50 states. That wasn't always the case. Yeah. You're going back in time where you're talking about chiropractors going to jail for practicing medicine without a license. And chiropractors always said, "Hey, we don't practice medicine. We practice chiropractic." That's so right. We need to, make sure we draw the hard line there too, and let the world know that, look, we support the future of chiropractic. I know one of the questions I ask is, where do you see the profession going in the next 20 years? I know that you gave me kind of your take on that before we did this interview, but why don't you just share with people where you see it going?
Well, you touched on some great things there. This chiropractic lifestyle, this chiropractic mindset that we've been given, it's such a unique view on life. It's such a unique worldview. And that's something that I think the world is going to see more of. I think the world is going to see more of that. In the chiropractic profession specifically, I think we're going to see more infrastructure be built out. We've seen the rise of chiropractic franchises. And to some extent, people have their opinions about chiropractic franchises one way or another. But I think there's a place for it, because I see how the graduates, they need a soft landing space. They need a place to go to learn and hone their adjusting skills, to learn business skills, all of those kind of things. So in some senses, those franchise models provide a level of infrastructure that we've never had in the chiropractic profession. We lack for residencies, and that's where I think the associate model and working with chiropractic graduates like I've been doing recently it's something that needs to continue and continue to help create that infrastructure, because there's not a lot of institutional jobs showing up. There's not a lot of hospital jobs showing up. Not that we would really want that, but those are the kind of things that, provide that level of infrastructure. And I think when we can get more involved in the infrastructure and create better market share for chiropractic, then people can see that this chiropractic lifestyle, this chiropractic mindset, there's something to it. There's when you're on fire about this stuff, when you have that energy, enthusiasm, it permeates everything you do, every interaction you go into. When I'm at my kids' PTA meetings, when I'm doing, things in the community, people are like, "Man, what's up with this Dr. Phil guy? He's like on fire, kind of thing." And it sounds cliche, and I don't even like that, I've heard that on chiropractic seminar circuits for years. It's just like, I don't know. It's one of those things that gets me, but I just am fired up. I am a fired up guy. I am enthusiastic about what I do, and I'm not going to sit back and take, let somebody tell me what I'm good for, kind of thing. And so if I can get more people like that, if we can get more people like that, I think the chiropractic future is bright. There's more females entering into the chiropractic profession than ever before. And I think that's a great thing. I think there's so many opportunities inside the United States to expand chiropractic to people who speak different languages. I've really worked hard at building my ability to speak Spanish just so I could take care of the Spanish speaking population. I think there's opportunities outside of the United States, even more so, to build chiropractic. I love what's going on at the college in terms of developing mission trips and developing programs through India and things of that nature, and setting up a college in India to establish chiropractic as really a healthcare service kind of thing. And so that's where that's where I think the future is awesome, is because there's so many opportunities outside the United States for chiropractic to grow. And even within chiropractic in the United States, there's so many patient populations who have never had exposure to chiropractic. we need to continue to recruit and cultivate chiropractic people to enter into the chiropractic profession, because when you have that familiarity with a patient population, it just expands the opportunity for people to get in under care. And, once you're under care and you start to feel how these people like myself and like you are just enthusiastic about what we do, it is contagious. And there's no way to set that apart. So,
yeah, I'm making fast notes over here, and I really believe that if chiropractic as a profession focused on everything that is chiropractic, not everything that it isn't, the conversation changes. And knowing that we know what we have, the conversation changes. So if we could be more on the consistent offense, full court press type strategy, then we don't have to go on the defense, and we don't have to like fight so hard. And I think that if we can continuously set up strategy to be on offense, then our best offense is our best defense. And then we don't fall into the trap of having to defend ourselves or come up with letters and rally the troops, because the troops are already marching. And I think that if we take that method within chiropractic and we apply it to how do chiropractors come out of college? Well, they go out and become successful. Well, how do we create successful chiropractors? Well, we follow these systems. Well, if we follow these systems, what's the outcome? Well, we have a successful future for chiropractic. We have strong philosophy. Everybody knows how to adjust well, and they know how to run businesses the best that they know how to, and it's great. So that's really where I think that we're going to head together. So
you hit the nail on the head, man. I mean, and we've touched on it. To me, the philosophy of chiropractic is so important, because the most successful chiropractors I've seen, and I've seen a lot of them, they were all rooted in the chiropractic philosophy. There was something that motivated them to be more, to do more, to find more people. I've worked, and the more if there's some of my students on here, or if there's new graduates, new practitioners, I highly encourage you, go back to the philosophy of chiropractic, get into the green books or whatever, go to the 33 principles or something that's digestible for you, and find that foundation for yourself. Because like I said, the most successful people I've seen in chiropractic, not just from a volume perspective or an income perspective, but just people who love, my dad's been at it 47 years. He's still practicing. He just had shoulder surgery from adjusting people for, bending over the table for so many years. And, he's already like, oh, I'm ready to get back in the office. He's telling me, I'm like, dude, you're 72 years old. You've been doing this. Give yourself a minute, kind of thing. But he's like, no, I need to get in there and take care of people and that kind of thing. And that's what I think will give you the kind of life that you're looking for, is when you can have that foundation in the philosophy and that's what will ultimately make this profession and your life as a professional in the chiropractic profession so worthy, or so gratifying.
Yeah, I think we touched on a lot of things. I appreciate you for standing in the gap with your political advocacy for chiropractic and talking about some of these topics that a lot of people aren't discussing, and rallying the troops because it's necessary. And, Chiro Hustle, we have Chiro Hustle Espanol. I knew that the market was moving towards Spanish. So we're one of the only dual lingual podcasts in the world. And we're talking about chiropractic. And, in 5 years from now, people are going to look back on this catalog and this remarkable effort that we put into creating this podcast, that there's going to be a depository of documentation of chiropractic stories that is so robust, and it could go miles around the globe with these stories. That was the whole impetus of creating a Chiro Hustle podcast, is I wanted to create a depository of information that documented this profession from voices of this profession that would stand the test of time, that no matter if anybody ever tried to come and manipulate the messaging of chiropractic, we always had a foundation of truth within chiropractic that no one ever could change or manipulate or take out. So I created this because I wanted this to get into chiropractic colleges. I wanted this to infiltrate the chiropractic state associations. I wanted this to get to every corner of chiropractic. And now we have 20% of the chiropractic profession listening to this show. I think we can do better. And I think that politically, this show means something on a large scale to chiropractic as a whole, because there's evidence that's published twice a week that chiropractic philosophy is alive, that the profession is strong, and that
Yep.
we have a front of people willing to speak loud and proud about what this profession means to them, why they became chiropractors, and the whole philosophy that entails it. So anytime somebody goes and searches for innate intelligence, they're going to find Chiro Hustle. And somebody's looking for BJ Palmer Sacred Trust, they're going to find Chiro Hustle.
Yeah.
So I strategically did all this to SEO the professional resonance back to these stories and these messages, because it's irrefutable when people find what they're looking for, that they're always going to come back to the philosophy. And that's why we support the way we do. And that's why we continuously bang the drum and bring on great guests like yourself, because each person has something that they're really proud of. And if they're not proud about chiropractic, I don't know what the hell they're proud of.
Well, I appreciate it, man. You're doing a good job, and thank you so much.
Yeah. So if people want to work with you, I know you said you have a program called Blue Chip.
Yep.
Where do we send them to?
Oh, I haven't really talked about Blue Chip yet, but you can always reach out to me. But yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to do, is help graduates and new practitioners find good job opportunities. I've been an adjunct professor at LIFE West now for 10 years. I have a private practice in San Jose. I just opened up a second office in Morgan Hill, California. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Dr. Phil, my Facebook group, Dr. Phil in Morgan Hill. You can always just email me. I'm happy to give out my phone number, 408-666-9004. Feel free to text me. I'll get back to you, or call, leave a message. I'll get back to you. It's just all about being accessible to people for me. So I just try to make that the standard by which I live, because other people have done that for me, and I want to return that.
Yeah. And if people wanted to get on with Cal Chiro and become members of the association, where would we send them for that?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I said, if people wanted to get on with Cal Chiro and become state members and become members of the association, where do we send them for that?
Absolutely. That's calchiro.org. That's how we've branded ourselves over the last few years. CALCHIRO. Hope everybody could join us, like at our fall conference in November in Napa. I know we're trying to get you out there and do some things for us as well, because that's really going to be a great event. A lot of neurology content, a lot of even Simon Senzen's going to be the keynote speaker, talking about subluxation and the history of subluxation. And so I'm really looking forward to that this year as well, because I think it's going to be a great opportunity for people to come together, and we can talk more about some of these political things that we've been discussing. Napa is a great location. The Meritage, if you haven't been there, phenomenal. Going to have a bowling competition, I think, there, so that should be some fun too.
All right, Dr. Phil. Well, you're episode 528 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I really appreciate you being our guest today.
All right, man. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
And I'll see you in the fall out at the event in Napa.
Cool.
All right. Well, I'm glad that everybody knows where to find you. Go over to calchiro.org and become a member and support the future of chiropractic. Because if you guys didn't know, California is the 5th largest economy in the world. And we need to protect the sacred trust out there for sure. Because if chiropractic goes in Cali, then chiropractic starts to domino everywhere else. So that's why I'm so supportive of what Dr. Phil's doing out there at Cal Chiro. So if you're a chiropractor in the state of California, a chiropractic student in the state of California, go out there and support and rally around this event out in Napa. So Dr. Phil, episode 528. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
I'll close out by telling everyone, you're just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for now. See you later. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.